Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our final spring ELA Tech Talk. It's the fourth Tech Talk in the series, putting it all together: research, practice, and reinforcement for greater learning. My name is Jamie Trujillo, and I will be moderating today's webinar. And I am joined by the ever so brilliant Dawn Dutton and Montserrat Oyanadel, who will be presenting the webinar today. Now, before we get started, please make sure that you put your name and your program name into the chat so that you can get credit for attending today's webinar live. If you have any issues with that, please feel free to email me at jamie@nmdelt.org and I can give you credit for attending. And also, if you have any questions as we go through this, please make sure to just put those questions in the chat and we will make sure to get that on there. And once again, and I know this has happened before, I realized I'm not sharing my screen.
Yes,
so
that's what I'm saying. I wanted to wait. Don't worry, things like that happen. Hello, everybody.
And so here we go.
There we go. Perfect. Thank you, Jamie.
You're welcome. All right.
Great. All right, let's get started. Thank you for that introduction, Jamie. Thank you, everybody that is here today. We are very excited. So if you're listening live or online, we want to welcome you to the fourth installment of our ELA TED Talk, Language Acquisition TED Talk, for this spring 2019 series session. It's been a pleasure to be with you every month. We've been learning and sharing and connecting with you, which is the key and the whole purpose of this series. So in a way, and as you know, the idea is to connect with you and try to help you to improve your lesson plan and to connect with you and hear best ideas and best practices. So today, before I keep going, I would like to introduce my co-presenter and partner in crime, Dawn. Hello,
Good afternoon.
Dawn.
Hello.
So I just want to say, because it's our last TED Talk, that without Dawn and of course Jamie, we couldn't make this TED Talk. So I'm very grateful for them. And of course, my partner Dawn, he's the one who back up all our ideas, and all the ideas that we have to teach and to research and to connect with other teachers. So we are glad that you are here with us today. So thank you, Dawn, for all you do.
Thank you, Monte.
Yeah, of course. And if you're new, we know that we have some people that have been watching the TED Talk for every TED Talk for the whole semester. But if you are new, I would like to give you a little background of what we do. So we are the New Mexico Distance Education and Learning Technologies, an MDEL team. So we are a team of teachers throughout the state of New Mexico who provide support and training related to online and blended learning practices in adult education. We work with diverse teachers around New Mexico and teaching them and supporting them, implementing teaching best practices. We also offer training and support for different learning technologies, including G Suite for Education, Edmonton Plato, NROC, and other several free open access online resources. So today we are going to talk about our experiences implementing the 4C framework using technology. Next slide, please.
Hello again, everyone. I'm listening live or on a recording. Today, our objective is to go over the 4 C's again and make sure that you are able to identify them and put them into practice as a guide to lesson planning. And also, we hope that you gain a deeper understanding of the 4 C's and the activities that fit into each of them that make each of them work. Next slide. Everyone listening live, would you please consider these 2 questions and put in the chat your short answer? We're curious about what you do. We talk about lesson plans all the time. What do you use? A 6-step lesson plan, a 5-step rubric, a form from your school? What do you use? I know some of you are veteran instructors. You don't need anything, but you may want to write some notes. How do you do it? I'm curious to get your responses about that question. And question 2 is about technology. I guess how and when do you use it? And what part of the lesson or like that. If you can answer that in a short answer, we'll give you a minute or two to do that, answer that question.
Please do. We are really curious to know what is your favorite part to use technology, and we usually do, and why, right? Why? Very briefly to share why do you use that. So Jamie, do we have some people already connected?
We do have some people on, so let's just give them a few minutes to
Perfect.
type up their answers. So yes, please put them in the chat if you could.
Great. Hello, everybody, too. Thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely, on this beautiful Wednesday.
I know, it's beautiful. So, Don, what do you use usually for your lesson plan?
Well, I learned with a six-step lesson plan, and I kind of keep that in mind when I make my plan as far as an introduction and like that. But more and more, I've been incorporating the four C's. I see it as a easier now that I've been working with it so much in the last few months,
Mm-hmm.
and that it makes so much sense. It makes me think about connecting with students and then presenting a concept and then giving students a variety of ways to practice and reviewing at the end and similar concepts to an old school kind of six-step lesson plan
Mm-hmm.
from 25 years ago that I might have learned at some point, but it's just important. I have been teaching for over 30 years, and even and I never go to class unprepared. I always write down what I'm going to do, how I'm going to present the lesson, how I'm going to practice, how we're going to evaluate. So
Mm-hmm.
so I think it's important. It's we're doing our we're doing our students a disservice if we don't do that.
Correct. I agree with you.
I do as well. We have gotten a couple of responses.
Perfect.
The first, Mariah says, I normally have guided notes for the students, and from there I fill in the notes.
Uh-huh.
So that's what Mariah does.
Oh, interesting.
Nancy says, oh, and she answered the question about the technology. I always use some sort of tech to review materials. Kahoot, online games, or quizzes are some of the tools that I utilize. And I also have these available for students to practice at home. I love Kahoot.
I love Kahoot, but I love
That's
quizzes
fabulous.
too. Quizzes is
Mhm.
such a good tool. I've been enjoyed playing with that this in my class too. Thank you for sharing, Maria. Thank you for joining us today.
And Nancy says she now is using a template that she got from the training in February that was
Mm-hmm.
focused on incorporating standards. So that's the
Mm-hmm.
template she's using. And she says that she uses technology throughout the lesson.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you, Nancy.
Maria was not specific. She just said she uses a lesson planner.
Lesson
Hmm.
planner. Okay, well, great answers. Thank you guys for participating. It's great to hear from you.
Absolutely.
Okay,
And that's
let's
all we have.
thank you. So let's go to the next slide too, and thank you guys again. So what we want to review now is the core of the why, right? The foundations of the lesson plan. So if you remember in the past, we talked about the six brain-based learning principles. So these six learning principles support and encourage and actually are the base of the framework. So these six principles are based on how people learn best and information stick to the brain. And we are not going to get into detail, but we just wanted to mention, just to remember that this is the foundation. And if you want to know more about it, we have a whole TED talk that we did this session that talks of each of one and provides some examples of how to use also technology and that base and found and align to these six principles. Next slide, please.
Just a reminder, when planning using the four C's or incorporating them into your lesson, that C1 is a connection, and we want this to be an activity that all students are involved with, not just some, and that everybody is connecting in some way, and to, of course, the content for the day. The concept is the presentation of how we teach and make sure that is uh, a variety of ways presented, reading that involve reading, speaking, listening, touching, researching, evaluating, critiquing, writing. All of that is students using the concepts uh, to get the content, and then the practice is how do learners gain competence. We want to do that in a variety of ways as well. And a conclusion that solidifies learning and how we can best reinforce and apply that learning. Next slide.
And now that Don presented the four C's framework, I would like to we created this kind of table or grid that you can see some of the tools that we use for each C. We have the C1, C2, C3, and C4, and some of the tools are the WhatsApp. You can use WhatsApp in multiples, or you can use Flipgrid too. And some of the tools that you guys already talk about, Kahoot, and the Flipgrid is also a really good one. Are just examples of how you can align technology to the four C's. The ones in the middle are Nearpod and Google Classroom. So as you know, Google Classroom is an LMS, and you can put a lot of the content together there. And also Nearpod is not an LMS, but actually has provides a lot of activities where you can ask reflective questions or polls. So I think Nearpod is actually one tool that you can use all the C's together. And again, this is just a reflection of the tool, and just in conclusion, and show you all the tools that we've been talking through the TED Talks and the ones that we use as teachers in our classroom to do and to align the content with the framework and enhancing with technology. Next slide, please. So something that we wanted to mention is why, right? Why are we infusing technology with the four C's? And that's something that we get all the time. The four C's is a very strong framework that Don was mentioning before. We start implementing since we got the training, and actually works really well. I feel, I'm just going to talk about my experience as a teacher. I feel way stronger in my classroom when I'm teaching my students and remembering that I have this framework. But what do we use technology? So based on the ISTE standards, and this is a great tool. We are very in love with the competencies and the standards, and we've been mentioning it through the TED Talks. And I'm encouraging we would like to encourage you to go check them out. So if you just get online and you can type iste.org. So why are we using and integrating technology in the 4C framework? So before we start, I want to we have here the students competencies. And why the students? Because in order to understand the teachers one, you have to start to understanding why are we doing this for the students. So there are seven key competencies, and I'm not going to get into each of them but I hope you can see it. This is a great picture diagram that you can get from the website. But the goal of the standards is to evaluate the skills and knowledge that the students need to learn effectively and also live productively in this world. And if you think things are changing very fast, and now we cannot provide students with the skills to survive and to navigate the system, it's impossible not to think that English language learners will not need technology. Even to improve an easy job that we consider easy, they need to manage technology. So that's why are we doing it. And especially some of these are because we need to teach them how to be responsible, and responsible in a way that they know what they are accessing and what content is safe. Also because they are independent, so they can take the content and learn and adapt to their own needs. And also another one that we always talk, and is what I think is the core of using technology, is the access. We are providing access to content outside of the classroom. So again, if you want to review these core competencies that actually make the back up the foundation of why we are using technology, please go ahead and check these competencies out on the website. Next slide, please.
Sharon Bowman in her books suggests starting at the end. We've heard this before, probably. And it's a good idea to know where you're going before you start on your trip, right? What do we want to do at the end? We want to know what competencies our students should have by the end of the lesson. How do we want them to demonstrate that as far as the assessment goes? How are we going to evaluate their demonstration? More importantly, do the students understand how they're being evaluated and what system they're going to be using to demonstrate their competencies? And what kind of celebration do we want at the end of the lesson? Next slide, please. In the concrete practice, again, working backwards from 4 to 3, we have a couple of ideas here, and you listening live today can look at this here and see there's a couple of ways that we can practice out content for the day. Is this a worst idea or is this a best idea? You decide. Watch a demonstration. What do you think? Best or worst? Yep, you're right. That's a worst idea. That's a big fat W. What about creating a training program slide? How about having students create a training program or a power slide presentation? Yep, you're right. That's the best one. Ask students if they have any questions. Hey, students, are there any questions? Any questions? No? Okay, let's go on. I think that was the best. Oh, that's the worst. Sorry. Okay, I'm not going to do that. In pairs at a computer, one student coaches another. That's pretty student-centered. What is that? That's probably a best practice. At a safety meeting, learning about safety on the job, you want to watch someone act safely. Does that sound like a great way to learn something? Nope, not again, not involving enough. For retail training, watch a demonstration of someone operating a register. Yeah, that would be about the same. We're pretty sure, yeah, that's the worst. To learn about housing, study vocabulary words. Out of context, just all the words having to do with housing. A best practice or worst practice? Yep, you're right again. In a role play, tenant and manager discuss rules. We might be using a little more language and vocabulary in that conversation, and yes, that is a best practice. And students create their own practice activities. Kind of the ultimate in best practices, right? So remember some things to keep in mind here when we do the practice session. Next slide, please. I love this graphic as far as connection. There what Moser was saying about connecting with AI, connecting with technology. Here we are, and remember in our concepts when we present our information through our teaching, still we need to be student oriented, and an online activity is certainly a good way to do it if your classroom is set up in such a way. A jigsaw has been for years and years, and will continue to be a great exercise anytime. Writing, taking notes, graphic organizers for students. Those are great ways for students to learn things as well. Formative assessments along the way. You as not the lecturer for an hour, but the facilitator, the guide. You're going to be providing formative assessments. Make sure that your lectures are quick and short. And again, the key is more facilitation or guidance on the teacher's part. Next slide, please. And to the beginning, to connections. Make sure that we're connecting learners to learners and learners to the topic, and then learners to their personal goals. Hopefully they match with the goals of the class, and that our learning outcomes for that lesson are match the goals of the students. And remember the primacy recency principle. The quote is, learners will remember how the class begins and ends more easily than all the pieces in the middle. Hence the need for a good ending, which I know I need to continue to work on more. I continually want to practice, and I don't get to the assessments and to the application of the conclusion part as quickly as I should. I need to work on that more. But remember that how you begin, how you end is important. We have a lesson plan that we developed using the 4Cs we want to share with you today. Next slide, please. This is what it looks like. This is using a 3-stage template that we're working with the University of New Mexico, Valencia. This is what we used with the workers who were building the Facebook factory there, were the Facebook facility there. We were teaching some of those needed English, and we were teaching them. Thanks to Claudia Lopez for helping us out with this. And we decided on this form to use it, and this is the lesson plan part of it. And let me show you what it looks like. Next slide, please. The connection part, this was a lesson about numbers and about privacy. We see a lot about that, and about job applications where you need to have a whole lot of numbers, and a job interview where they ask you a whole lot of dates and times, and forms and schools and things. And it seems like to do the simplest things, we need to provide a lot of information. Buy a house, have a rental agreement. Get a job, certainly you're filling out a form with all kinds of stuff. I wrote this list of a short list here, just a whole bunch of kinds of numbers and information that we're going to use in this lesson. But I'm sure that people can come up with others to add to this. But that's a whole bunch of information, and it seems like a lot of people are going to need these numbers. I'm sure not everybody's going to need their massage therapist's number, or their money manager's number, or their parole officer's number. But some people need all of those. Some people need none of those. But it's a personal thing. But these are all ones that people can have. And the connections part is next. Next slide. Thank you. So simply, instructor offers the idea that we live in a complicated world, and keeping track of numbers we use in our lives can be difficult. Students can look at the list that I showed you above in the previous slide, and also share other numbers that they need and numbers that they don't need. Talk about that a little bit, and then the class together builds the numbers, the important numbers, and the kinds of information that they need to live in the United States. And then the instructor asks, how do you keep that information? Of course, everybody keeps information in their phone, but you lose your phone, what do you do? How do people keep information? How do they keep private information private? Do they, how much do they believe in privacy, that kind of thing? And we then discuss ways to keep and remember and store and secure data. Next slide, please. So in the concepts part, I went to this Wikipedia page that actually outlines several different kinds of numbers. And so here the assignment is for students to go to this page and learn on their own. Of course, with me right there helping them, if that works in the classroom. I recommend this kind of thing. It's a really interesting site about the kinds of numbers, things maybe you hadn't thought about. But students are self-directing then to study this. Next slide, please. And for their practice, this website here is actually a lesson plan to learn about personal and private information. And the students have forms to complete about and determine for themselves what is personal, private, or sensitive, and also what do they discuss in private, what should be private, the social issues, what do you discuss at a picnic, what do you discuss around the dining room table or out at a restaurant, or what can someone ask, what can a school official ask, what can someone offering you a job ask in an interview, those kinds of things. We discuss all that. Next slide, please. As a concluding effort, we ask students to choose 10 of the words and make a sentence. Use it in a sentence in some kind of way, and read the sentence to their partners. And then we talk about make it personal again. Ask the question, will you make any changes to how and where you keep and access your personal information? And of course, celebrate. You can celebrate in a variety of ways. I love the car wash, two lines, hands up. People, each person walks through the lines, gets high five, like getting brushed by the car wash brushes. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Don, for that. Explaining each part of the lesson. It's very useful, and I love how you embed different technology tools. That's a great example how to use it. So before we conclude the TED Talk, I think, Don, you did a great job showing how to do it. We just want to share with you some advice, and because it's almost the end of the TED Talk. So again, the 4C is the framework is interchangeable, means that sometimes you don't need to do C1, C2, C3, and C4 in order. Sometimes you can put together C2 and C3, and you just go together, and then you repeat C1 and do some connections. So in a way, it's not linear. The most important thing is that you are clear and you have the purpose and the outcomes clear for your lesson. Also, each tech tool is unique, right? But also you can use it in different stages of the lesson. You can use WhatsApp for different stages. You can use as a connector, or as a concrete practice tool, or as a conclusion. I use some of these tools all the time, and I wish you can talk to my students and actually see how much they love to use some of these tools. And also, again, this framework is based on brain research, and Sharon Woman is the one who created these materials, and we are using it and getting the ideas based on that framework. So of course, we want to give them the credit. And again, we are using a lot of technology to make it meaningful and relevant to our work as an MDelt. So start small. If you really want to embrace and be good at it, don't get overwhelmed. Each of us, and I will include Jamie too, we start very small and then we start implementing ideas. And something that I have to remember is, because I do like to try everything, my poor students sometimes get overwhelmed, because every time I find a new tool, I put it there, and sometimes it's not a good idea. Sometimes you just have to keep, and this aligned to all the ones that are come, is that please be aware what the students like. And this is totally based on my own experience teaching and loving technology. Some students get very overwhelmed changing tool after tool. So just keep the ones and hear their feedback. Be resilient and keep trying. The outcomes are worth it. You're going to see some, in terms of level gains. You will see how students love to come home and work, and they do their homework. I don't do homeworks. There are no mandate for me, but I told them, please, if you want to practice at home, just do the homework. And all of them been doing homework really well, because we are using technology. Don't forget the 6 principles, and of course, have fun with it. It's so cool. I'm actually, before this TED Talk, I was listening the homeworks and the recording of my students, and I get so proud and so happy, because they are great. I can hear how the improvement and how many new words that are using, and is good. It's helping them for their personalities, and actually they are able to be themselves in other language, which is one of the main reasons that we are teaching English language acquisition. Next slide, please. So thank you for being here today. We are the New Mexico Distance Education Learning Technologies and MDel team. We provide training support. We have a lot of resources to share, and we would like to provide networking options so you can connect with our teachers, and also opportunities for professional development. And these are our social media information. So please contact with us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And of course, we have a great website where this webinar will be posted and available with the slides too. So please check nmdel.org. Next slide, please. And we would like to invite you to join our Warplays group. So because we like to share comments and ideas, of course, resources. So if you want to be part of this group, please email us, Dawn, or me. We will be glad to hear from you and give you the instructions how to join this group. At the moment, we have around 23 instructors, and we would like to connect with you and create this community where we can share ideas and connect and be and share best practices. We can learn from each other for sure. We have a lot of expertise in the field, and it's time. Let's connect. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, thank you. And we are wondering, Jamie, I know we don't have much time, but if you guys have any questions, or Jamie, maybe we have a question that we can respond briefly.
Yeah, there are no questions right now. We did get one comment. Thank you for an excellent presentation. That was from Nancy. And I'm going to leave this screen on for a second just so that you can copy the survey link, and make sure that all lowercase and capitalized letters are just as they are when you put in the link. And there, of course, are Dawn and Monse's email addresses. If you want to join, like Monse was saying, the Facebook Workplace group, it really is an excellent way to connect through social media without having to mix in your personal Facebook account. So it's really great for that.
Thank you, Jamie, and thank you, Dawn, and thank you again for all the participants. We love to do this kind of presentations.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
thank you both for a wonderful presentation, as always.
We have gotten some responses in that survey down there. I want to thank all of you who have done that. Please feel free to do that again if you have any thoughts. I'll fill that out again for this talk today.
Yes, and also
And
the last thing. Oh, I'm sorry, Dawn.
no, go ahead.
Oh, I just would like to encourage participants to let us know what would you like to learn, and to review for next year. We would like to plan ahead and see how we can serve you better, and of course, create meaningful PD opportunities for you all. So please reach out, email us, and we will be glad to hear from you. And of course, your feedback, so we can always be improving. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you both so very much, and thank you all as well for participating. I hope you all have a great rest of your Wednesday.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.